How you doing? Welcome 8th graders. I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. You've enjoyed your break. As you saw from our Google Classroom post, our main job this week is to take a couple Math Illuminate assessments that can see how we're doing with some of this virtual learning. So this video here, I'm going to show you how to access those learning assessments on Illuminate, and then also kind of give you a preview for the first one in this video. I'm not going to give you the answers, but kind of talk through the problems a little bit and what they're looking for. So what you see here right now, I'm on my Clever backpack. This should look similar to your Clever backpack. And you're going to scroll down to assessment. You can even scroll down or click where I'm clicking. And when you go down to assessment, you're going to launch the Illuminate link. For you, it's going to say Illuminate Students as opposed to mine, which says Illuminate Teachers. When you open your Illuminate link, the assessment that you're looking for, the first assessment that we're going to take, is the assessment that's called Proportional Relations, Line, and Linear Relations. And that, for you, is the one that I'm going to highlight right now in a green box. So again, the very first assessment, we're going to take two of them. The first one we want you doing is the one called Proportional Relations, Lines, and Linear Equations. So it'll look a little different on your end, but you're going to go ahead and launch that assessment. And then you should see what I'm seeing on my screen now here. There'll be a little preview screen at the beginning, and then the first question that you should see is this question 1 with a table and an equation, and you should see at the top it should say Proportional Relations, Lines, and Linear Equations, and it should have your name up here in the top right. That should not be a problem if you've been logged into Backpack. So, for the first two questions here, the very first two questions that we deal with are going to be asking us about proportional relationships. So as you see, part of this assessment is about proportional relations, where you see me highlighting that in the title, and the first two questions are really going to give you proportional relationships to work with. Question 1 gives you a table which shows a proportional relationship for how much money this person, Sarah, earns babysitting. And then separately, they give you an equation to show us how much Abby earns babysitting. So really your job on problem 1 here, I'm going to put some red underlines. Sarah's babysitting and she has a table to show her what she's doing. And Abby's earnings are going to be represented for Abby by this equation A equals 5H. So you're really comparing this table for Sarah with the equation for Abby, and your job is really to make sense of this data in the table and the equation and figure out who earns more money. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on question 1 or question 2. I think they're both ones that you should kind of just read, think about, and do your best to make sense of the data that's in the table or the equation, or in question 2's case, the graph. So for question 2, they're going to give you a written description, this sentence that I'm highlighting, which is going to describe to you a scenario between how much pounds of watermelon is sold and the price that the market is getting for those watermelons sold, and your job is to figure out which of these 4 graphs here match up with the story being told by this sentence. And I think you're going to be in good shape on question 2 if you read through this carefully and then see which graph tells me the same story as this sentence. For question 3, I'm going to pull my notes back up about slope-intercept, because the last 4 questions are going to be about linear relationships and talk to you either about their slope or y-intercept. For question 3, it's going to be a real-world word problem where they describe to you a store selling soda and how much money they're getting for that soda. They'd say if the relationship is graphed with the number of cans of soda on the x-axis and the cost on the y-axis, what is the slope of the graph in dollars per can? So what's important to remember here, slope is always going to be y change divided by x change. It's our rate of change, but specifically in the form y divided by x. So as you measure the slope here, they're really asking you what is the rate of change, and they want whatever the y variable is to be in your numerator and the x variable to be in the denominator. Now for questions 4, 5, and 6, for each one they're going to give you a graph of a linear relationship, and your job is going to be to mostly find the equation that matches up with that graph. So I think the big key to remember as we do question 4, we've practiced this skill quite a bit. If I want to find an equation, if I want to write a y equals mx plus b equation for a linear relationship, I need to remember that m is going to be slope, which I can measure by doing rise over run between 2 points, see how much the graph rises up versus runs sideways. And your y-intercept is going to be your initial value, or really it's going to be the point where the line crosses with the y-axis. If you can find that point represents the initial value, or the y-intercept. And again, once you find the m and the b, the slope and the y-intercept, the reason we call this slope-intercept form is once you have the slope and the y-intercept, you just quickly plug them into this equation. I don't want to go too much further on question 4, 5, and 6. The key is really, can you measure slope? Can you find the y-intercept? The one thing I want to highlight, when you enter this equation, do not use a capital Y. For some annoying reason, if you type in a capital Y instead of clicking their lowercase y or writing a lowercase y, a few students emailed me to say, hey, it's going to mark you wrong if you use a capital Y. So that's annoying, but please make sure when you're writing these equations, use a lowercase y and a lowercase x like they're offering here in the menu. If you have any questions when you're working through this first Illuminate, please send me an email. I'm happy to jump on Zoom and kind of talk you through it, even if I can't give you the whole answer. Then after you submit the assessment, I'm happy to explain any of the questions you might have had too. Have a great day, and thank you for taking the time to complete the Illuminate assessment.